You ever have a neighbor decide your backyard belongs to them? Mine did, and she brought the entire HOA police state with her. What started as one woman screaming about my tool shed ended with her mugshot going viral and the whole neighborhood finally admitting they'd been terrorized by a pastel-wearing tyrant for years. I moved to Cedar Grove Estates 2 years ago after my divorce. Looking for quiet. Big mistake. The neighborhood looks like a postcard, manicured lawns. Identical beige houses. Kids on bikes. The whole American dream package. But underneath that sunny California suburb glow is a set of covenants thicker than the Bible and twice as judgmental. And at the very top of the food chain sat Victoria Langford. Victoria was the kind of woman who wore linen blazers to check the mail and spoke in that syrupy, concerned voice that somehow always sounded like a threat. We're just trying to protect property values. Dear. She'd been HOA president for 8 straight years because nobody dared run against her. She knew every rule, every loophole, and exactly how to weaponize both. The rumors about me started small. That Hale guy never comes to block parties. He's always inside with those cameras, kinda creepy. Right? Someone claimed I was antisocial because I politely declined 3 wine nights in a row. By month 4, the whispers had upgraded to he's probably hiding something in that house. I heard it all secondhand and said nothing. I just smiled, nodded, and kept my security system running 24/7. I'd learned a long time ago, when you're the quiet one, people fill in the blanks with whatever scares them most. Then I built the shed. It was nothing crazy, just a 10 by 12 backyard workshop so I could finally have a proper space for my woodworking. I followed the county permit process to the letter. Painted it the exact approved beige. Even added the same fake shutters every other house had. I figured I was golden. I was wrong. The afternoon Victoria showed up. I was staining the door. A shiny white Lexus rolled to a stop at my curb. Victoria stepped out in salmon-color capris and oversized sunglasses, flanked by 2 board members who looked like they'd rather be anywhere else. She marched straight into my driveway like she owned the deed. "Jordan," she called out in that fake sweet tone. "We need to talk about this structure." I wiped my hands on a rag. "It's a shed." Victoria. "Permitted. County approved it last week." She gave a little laugh that didn't reach her eyes. "Sweetheart. County approval means nothing here. Cedar Grove has aesthetic standards. This thing is an eyesore. It's visible from the walking path. You're lowering everyone's property values." One of the board members actually nodded like this made sense. I kept my voice calm. The covenants say structures under 200 square feet don't require HOA approval if they match the color palette. Mine's 120. Same color as your garage. Victoria's smile tightened. The covenants also say the board has final interpretive authority. And we interpret this as a violation. She pointed one manicured finger at my shed like it had personally insulted her. "You have 30 days to remove it. Or we start fining you $100 a day." I just looked at her. "You're serious?" "Deadly," she said, already turning back to her Lexus. "Welcome to Cedar Grove, Mr. Hale. We do things the right way here." That was the moment I stopped being polite. Over the next 6 weeks the fines came like clockwork. $100. $200. $500. Certified letters in cream envelopes that smelled like expensive perfume in desperation. Then the code enforcement complaints started. Someone anonymous reported me for illegal storage of hazardous materials. The city inspector showed up. Took one look at my neatly organized tools and paint cans. And left shaking his head. But Victoria wasn't done. One Tuesday morning I came home from the grocery store and found orange survey flags staked across my backyard. A guy in a reflective vest was measuring my shed while Victoria stood on the sidewalk filming everything on her phone. I walked up quietly. "You lost?" The inspector startled. "Ma'am here said this was common area. Said the covenants extend to the rear property line." I smiled the way you smile at someone who just stepped in dog shit. "They don't. And you're trespassing. Get off my lawn." Victoria lowered her phone. Face flushed. "Jordan. Be reasonable. We're only trying to." "Reasonable?" I cut her off. "You fined me almost $4,000 for a permitted shed. You've sent code enforcement twice. You've told half the neighborhood I'm running some kind of meth lab out of a 120 square foot workshop. That's not reasonable." "Victoria. That's unhinged." Her mask slipped for half a second, pure venom in her eyes, before the sweet smile snapped back on. "We have rules for a reason. Dear." That night I stopped playing defense. I was a former corporate compliance officer. I'd spent 15 years auditing companies that thought they were above the rules. I knew exactly how these little fiefdoms worked. So I started pulling documents. Every covenant amendment. Every financial report. Every email chain I could get through public records requests. What I found was beautiful. First, the boundary issue. My lot had been platted before the HOA even existed. The covenants technically didn't apply to certain rear yard improvements on legacy parcels. Victoria had been ignoring that for years because nobody ever pushed back. Second, the money. Over $187,000 in special assessments and emergency maintenance funds that had quietly disappeared into a shell company called Vista Management Solutions. A company that had no employees, no office, and whose only listed address was a UPS store in Nevada. The registered agent? Victoria's sister-in-law. I kept digging. Quietly. Patiently. While Victoria kept escalating. The breaking point came on a perfect Saturday morning. I was drinking coffee on my back patio when I heard footsteps in the grass. Two figures in dark clothes were moving along my fence line carrying what looked like black trash bags. One of them was Victoria's right-hand man, Derek. The other was a woman I recognized from the board. They started pulling old oily rags and paint cans out of the bags and scattering them around the base of my shed. I hit record on my phone. Then spoke loud enough for the cameras to catch everything. "Morning, neighbors. Getting ready for a little false flag operation?" They froze. Victoria's head snapped toward my voice like she'd been electrocuted. Her face, usually Botox smooth, twisted into something ugly and panicked. "This isn't what it looks like." "Really?" I stepped out of the shadows. "Because it looks like you're planting evidence so you can call the fire marshal again and claim I'm a safety hazard." Again. Derek tried to run. He didn't get far. The sheriff's deputy I'd already called was waiting at the side gate. Victoria stood there in her designer athleisure. Chest heaving. Blonde bob slightly messed up for the first time in recorded history. "You have no idea who you're dealing with," she hissed. I smiled. "Actually, I do. And I have 8 months of documentation. Financial records. And now video of you committing felony trespass and attempted insurance fraud." Smile for the camera. "Victoria. You're live." The HOA emergency meeting that night was legendary. I showed up in jeans and a faded black t-shirt while Victoria wore her full power suit like armor. The clubhouse was packed. People who'd been terrified of her for years suddenly found their spines. When I presented the evidence, bank records, the shell company, the planted rags, the forged boundary maps, the room went dead silent. Then someone started slow clapping. Within 30 seconds the entire room was on their feet. Victoria tried the victim act. I was only trying to protect our community. He's twisting everything. A woman in the back shouted. You fined me $2,500 because my Christmas lights were up until January 12th. Another yelled. My husband had cancer and you threatened foreclosure over grass length. Victoria's face cycled through rage. Shock. Then pure animal panic as the board members who'd once kissed her ring started distancing themselves in real time. 2 weeks later she was arrested at the country club during ladies' brunch. The mugshot was perfect, cucumber water still in hand. Mascara running. That signature blonde bob finally looking as chaotic as her soul. The charges were beautiful: embezzlement, conspiracy, falsifying records, and a few creative ones the DA added just for flavor. I didn't even have to take over the HOA in the end. The remaining board members voted to dissolve the worst parts of the covenants and bring in an independent management company. Fines were refunded. People started actually talking to each other instead of reporting each other. As for me, I kept the shed. Painted a small sign for the back gate that just says, Private property. Mind your own lawn. So here's the question I want you to answer honestly in the comments. When does protecting the neighborhood cross the line into straight-up tyranny? Was Victoria just an overzealous Karen doing her job, or was she exactly the kind of power-hungry bully who only gets stopped when someone finally fights back? Drop your verdict below. Team Shed or Team HOA?